Here's CBS.
This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. Good evening. There was a new turn today in the spreading investigation of defense contract fraud inside the Pentagon. Attorney General Edwin Meese is denying charges that the Justice Department looked the other way while corruption went unchecked. Pentagon correspondent David Martin has our report.
An administration source says the two highest-ranking Pentagon officials named as targets of the defense corruption probe are expected to be relieved of their present duties pending the outcome of the investigation. It is not clear whether the two officials, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy James Gaines and Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force Victor Cohen, will be allowed to continue work in other jobs or whether they will be suspended from all defense business. Meanwhile, the chief prosecutor in the Pentagon bribery case today gave another sign of just how far-reaching his investigation is.
At this point, there have been over 270 subpoenas served that are returnable to...
According to Hudson, 78 FBI agents have been working on the case full-time. His boss, the Attorney General, rejected congressional charges that the Reagan Justice Department has been slow to investigate evidence of defense corruption.
We're very proud in the Reagan administration of our record of prosecuting defense procurement fraud.
Three more congressmen, Andy Ireland, Sam Stratton, and Thomas Downey, were named by law enforcement sources as being under scrutiny. But these sources cautioned that there is not yet enough evidence to make the congressmen targets of the investigation. All three said they have not been contacted by the Justice Department, and one congressman named earlier said it was all political.
It has happened almost every time I've run for office. About this time of the year, every innuendo that can possibly come out comes out.
Another prominent name that has surfaced, former Navy Secretary John Lehman. But according to one key senator, there is no evidence of criminal conduct.
Clear, I've not heard anything relating to criminal corruption against former Secretary of Navy Lehman.
The chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee seemed to lay some of the blame for the current scandal at the feet of former Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger.
He did not emphasize management. He emphasized getting the budget through. He emphasized an adding machine type approach to strategy.
In this election year, the trend seems clear. Democrats will blame the administration for creating an atmosphere in which corruption could flourish. Republicans will claim credit for rooting it out. David Martin, CBS News, The Pentagon.
The former CIA station chief in Central America today became the 8th person criminally charged in the Iran-Contra conspiracy case. Robert Shackney has that story.
Joseph Fernandez, the CIA's top spy in Costa Rica 2 years ago, was indicted today on 5 charges of conspiracy and lying to government agencies.
The indictment alleges that Mr. Fernandez, while serving as the senior CIA officer in Costa Rica, conspired to defraud the United States by secretly and deceitfully supporting military operations by the Contras.
Fernandez is accused of secretly working with former National Security aide Oliver North and retired General Richard Secord in setting up a covert supply network for the Contras at a time when the CIA was prohibited by law from aiding the Contras. Fernandez is accused of organizing parachute drops and building a secret airfield. The indictment also charges Fernandez with obstructing the work of the Presidential Commission investigating the Iran-Contra affair by making false, fictitious, fraudulent, and misleading statements, and with unlawfully, willfully, and knowingly making a material false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement to the CIA's Inspector General as well. In closed-door testimony to Congress, Fernandez claimed his Contra operations with Oliver North were known to the CIA. But his CIA boss at the time denied he was ever told. Hernandez, who since left the CIA, is believed to be the first CIA officer ever indicted for running a covert operation while at the agency. And the grand jury that indicted Fernandez is still meeting, still investigating, and could bring more indictments. Robert Shackney, CBS News, Washington.
Haiti's top army officer named himself president today after deposing the elected leader in a violent coup last night. Haiti's ambassador in Washington called on the United States to help the ousted president who went into exile today in the neighboring Dominican Republic. Haiti's borders and airports are closed, but CBS News correspondent Richard Roth got his story out tonight on a bad audio line from Santo Domingo.
Military Commander General Henri Namfi announced the takeover, saying the Army will run Haiti as necessary with order and discipline. Borders were shut and a curfew imposed. And though reports of sporadic gunfire in the capital Port-au-Prince continued into this morning, The coup apparently had broad support within the military and met little violent resistance, according to CBS newsman Claude Mancuso in Haiti.
It looks like a lot less people have been killed than we thought because this coup was maneuvered by all the military hierarchy was apparently involved.
The coup ended the civilian government of President Leslie Monnegat, inaugurated just 4 months ago. But in the absence of detailed confirmed information about what's happening in Haiti, the State Department was cautious in its criticism.
We are concerned by the reports of the events taking place there. If what took place was a straight military coup d'etat, it would represent a severe setback for the hopes for democracy in Haiti, and we would condemn it.
For years in Haiti, long the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, democracy has been nothing more than a hope. The dynasty that ended just over 2 years ago when Jean-Claude Duvalier fled the country for exile was replaced by a military junta headed by General Namfi and a promise of civilian rule eventually. But the army has stayed uneasy about sharing power, contributing to the chaos last November when violence and bloodshed fatal to more than 30 people ended a first attempt at free elections. Slowly, since his election in January with the army's help, President Monnegat had tried to consolidate civilian rule. That attempt came to a crisis only late last week when the president ordered the army general into retirement, and the overnight coup d'etat was the result. Richard Roth, CBS News, Santo Domingo.
As so often happens, the economic summit in Toronto was overshadowed for a time by an outside development, in this case Haiti, but the leaders managed to put together a political statement, and President Reagan called himself the ball carrier for Western economic policy. White House correspondent Bill Plant is covering the summit.
In Toronto, where the leaders of the industrial democracies were focusing on political problem spots, the trouble in Haiti was the day's first question.
Word of that. This is just something that we're going to have to assess. We haven't had time to get into it.
Later reaction from the administration was more negative, condemning any military coup as a severe setback for democracy in Haiti. On this second day of the economic summit, the 7 leaders issued a political declaration highlighting their agreement in 3 areas: on drug trafficking, cooperation to confiscate drug profits and curb money laundering; on terrorism, endorsing the idea that hijacked aircraft not be allowed to take off; and on East-West relations, a ringing endorsement of President Reagan's arms control policy and relations with the Soviet Union. The statement raised the prospect of increased trade with the Eastern Bloc, coupled with continued improvement on the observance of human rights. Other difficult political and economic issues were still being debated, but President Reagan, sticking to his summit plan of stressing the positive, hailed word from Tokyo that the Japanese will drop import quotas on U.S. beef and citrus products. And he signed an agreement with Prime Minister Takeshita on scientific and technical cooperation.
In it, we set forth the policy framework for this overall relationship. Our hope is to strengthen the relationship for peaceful purposes.
But critics are quick to claim that no matter what agreements are signed, the nature of the relationship with countries like Japan is changing dramatically.
We have become much more dependent on those countries than we used to be. We used to be the leader, they were the follower. We've really traded places now with those countries.
The administration doesn't agree and is trying to stay ahead of its summit partners by claiming credit for the currently stable world economy. But there are still difficult questions of debt and deficit which won't be answered by the time this summit ends tomorrow, though that won't stop the flood of self-congratulation. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the President in Toronto.
Japan's Prime Minister was basking in the glow of today's well-timed trade agreement with Tokyo, one that could eventually boost earnings of farmers in this country by $1 billion a year. Even so, a new poll shows that U.S.-Japanese relations are still very shaky. More from CBS News business correspondent Ray Brady at the summit.
That handshake is a breakthrough, an agreement to end the long battle to let more U.S. beef and citrus go into Japan. Trade Representative Clayton Yeiter was delighted, calling it a landmark deal. For the Japanese here at the Economic Summit, the timing was no coincidence.
This is one of the very skillful tactics by our new Prime Minister, Takeshita. He's very skillful.
He'll need that skill. A CBS News Tokyo Broadcasting System poll shows many of the Japanese questioned feel relations between the United States and Japan are unfriendly.
I think it's unfortunate, but this is a result of the continued trade friction and continued poor performance of the United States in international trade.
43% of the adults polled last month in Japan believe relations are unfriendly, while only 17% of the Americans feel the same way. On a personal basis, nearly a third of the Japanese say they have unfriendly feelings toward the United States. In the U.S., 15% have those feelings about Japan.
We feel that Americans are not working hard enough. They are not trying to sell vigorously enough. They are not making any kind of marketing efforts that the Japanese are making in the American market.
Still, more Japanese now blame their government's restrictive trade policy for the poor performance of American products in Japan. The Japanese used to blame poor quality of U.S. goods. A majority of Japanese say they are willing to give up having more consumer goods and comforts to keep Japan dominant. In the U.S., only slightly more than a third feel the same way.
Nowhere is the widening difference between the two nations more apparent than at this summit. The Japanese are deferred to here. Their economy is now the second biggest in the free world. And the other nations say that the Japanese are throwing their money and power around here just like another group used to, the Americans. Ray Brady, CBS News, Toronto.
A fisherman in Madeira Beach, Florida made a surprise catch today. Instead of his intended quarry of shrimp, he got a missile. The catch, once it was up on the beach, caused quite a stir. Residents were evacuated from at least one block. Traffic was diverted and bomb teams from nearby Patrick Air Force Base showed up. Officials say the missile could have come from an Air Force plane that crashed within the past few years. Well, still to come on the CBS Evening News, Rita Braver on a Supreme Court ruling that has them grumbling in the men's clubs, and Richard Schlesinger on sensational new charges in New York's Tawana brawling case.
With low back pain, walking can be agony, where every step shoots pain. Up here, you know what helps? New back guard.
Clinically proven back guard is a shoe insert for low back pain aggravated by foot shock. Back guard with its shock trapper module relieves this low back pain. Watch how it helps absorb shock upon impact to reduce the shock to your back.
Amazing. Something down here can help up here.
New back guard from Dr. Scholl's. Absorb shock all day to help keep back pain away.
Tonight, Dad raised the son's fridge. He practically lived in mine. I'd always tell him, stay away from the big three, salt, fat, calories, and watch the cholesterol. That's what Doc always told me. Looks like he did listen.
Fleischmann's Light, 25% less salt, fat, and calories than regular margarine, and no cholesterol.
Watching out for the big three, Dad? Yeah, I listened. Most of the time.
Fleischmann's Light.
When it comes to buying a laxative, I would buy Dulcolax.
Mary Goldie talks about Dulcolax.
It's predictable. It's very gentle.
Dulcolax, tablets and suppositories.
I would not use anything but Dulcolax because it works.
Professor,
Yes, Val?
you've got dirty dentures.
I just soaked them.
Soaking's not enough. Brushing with Denture Cream Denture toothpaste cleans almost twice as clean.
A significant advantage.
Brush with Denture Cream or Denture Gel.
U.S. Supreme Court made it tougher today for private clubs to keep their doors closed to women and minorities. Law correspondent Rita Braver reports.
Like it or not, the men who munch at some of the nation's most exclusive dining and social clubs are about to find themselves in company that's a little less exclusive. A unanimous Supreme Court today upheld a New York City law that forbids discrimination against women and minorities at private clubs with more than 400 members, where meals are regularly served and where members' employers pick up the tab for entertainment of business clients. Several other cities have similar statutes, prompted by heavy lobbying from women's groups.
Traditionally, clubs and so-called private organizations have really been a key means for people in lives of professions and business to make important contacts and to conduct business.
Clubs argued that members were merely exercising their constitutional rights of free, private association. But writing for the court, Justice Byron White responded, that fact alone does not give a club any constitutional immunity to practice discrimination when the government has barred it from doing so. They didn't like that much at the men's clubs we stopped by today.
Thank you. The women in this case, a couple of ambitious, clever, probably attractive women, trying to tell us, simple, a complicated group of men, what we should have in the way of a club was wrong.
The organization has a lot of values as an all-male organization. Men and women happen to act differently when they're together.
But the men are fighting a Supreme Court trend. In 2 previous cases, the court prohibited discrimination by the JCs and Rotary clubs. Women's groups say their next target is all-male country clubs, where big deals are made out on the golf course. Rita Braver, CBS News at the Supreme Court.
The Roman Catholic Church went around in the Supreme Court today. The court threw out a contempt citation against the church for withholding documents in a lawsuit. Today's ruling did not deal with the key question in that lawsuit, the charge by abortion rights groups that the church is violating its tax-exempt status by lobbying to outlaw abortion. George Bush and Michael Dukakis had another long-distance clash today about a growing controversy in the presidential campaign. Who's best qualified to lead the war on drugs? Wyatt Andrews has our report on that.
Almost every day, George Bush and Michael Dukakis appear somewhere to say something about how they will conduct a new war on drugs. Today, Bush honored the families of drug agents killed on duty. Dukakis was in Boston defending his anti-drug program in Massachusetts.
We also have what the DEA says is the best state program of education and prevention in the country. I hope so.
We're not going to sound retreat, ever, in this war on drugs.
Ever since polls showed drugs to be the #1 concern of the public, there's been a rush to be the toughest against drugs. Bush brags the administration task force on drugs seized 70 tons of cocaine last year. Dukakis attacks, saying the administration never recognized the drug crisis for what it was.
The greatest threat to our national security in this hemisphere is not the Sandinistas. It's the avalanche of drugs that is pouring into the United States of America.
Despite the rhetoric, what the 2 men actually promise in the war on drugs is remarkably similar. Both would use the military to help interdict drugs coming into the country. Both would appoint a federal drug czar to coordinate the war. The 2 men sharply disagree, however, on the death penalty for drug-related killers. Dukakis is against it, Bush in favor.
Because you've got to educate people.
You see Bush and Dukakis in schools now, calling for increased spending for education and rehabilitation, but neither is clear about how to pay for that. In the methadone treatment centers of New York, where thousands of heroin addicts are on waiting lists just to get into counseling, there is a feeling that both candidates are just posturing.
What's needed is for the top government official in this country, and that's the president, to say, by God, we're not going to tolerate people who want treatment being forced to continue shooting dope.
Some drug policy critics also point to what the candidates are not saying. No calls for the nationwide testing of all public employees, for example, or any kind of drastic proposal to indicate the war on drugs will really be a war, as opposed to election year promises the experts predict will go away when the election does. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Washington.
Are you getting more than you want out of your high-fiber cereal? Like sodium and added sugar? If what you want out of your high-fiber cereal is high fiber, you should be eating Fiber One. You get more fiber with Fiber One, and Fiber One is low in sodium and has absolutely no added sugar. So get more of the fiber your body needs, and less of the stuff it doesn't. Get Fiber One.
How can you help your home sell faster? Protect the major appliances. If your real estate company can't do that, then you're not listed with the right real estate company. Because you're not listed with an ERA broker.
This man takes vacations for a living. Don't let him take yours. So don't carry cash. Carry American Express traveler's checks. Don't leave home without them.
Painful conditions are a fact of life in a modern hospital. And when it comes to relieving everyday pain, the overwhelming choice of hospitals is Tylenol. Tylenol is clinically proven effective for all kinds of pain. That's a medical fact. And there's another important thing you should know. Hospitals can trust Tylenol not to irritate your stomach. In fact, unlike aspirin or even ibuprofen, Tylenol is so easy on your stomach, most ulcer patients can use it. Tylenol. It's tough on pain, easy on your stomach.
More trouble today in Israel. A worker on a cooperative farm near the occupied territories was found beaten to death, and his co-workers are angrily demanding action. We have more on that now from Mark Phillips.
Early this morning, the body of an Israeli farmer was found near the dividing line between the occupied West Bank and Israel. He's believed to be the fourth Israeli victim of the Palestinian uprising. Eli Cohen was 33 years old, the father of 2 young children. He had gone to tend his vineyard on the Israeli side of the line where he lived. The army says he was bludgeoned to death with a sprinkler pipe. The farmers in Cohen's settlement were angry with Israeli authorities, who they said had not provided enough security. The Israeli authorities were pretty sure they knew who did it.
We assume that it is someone that came from the other side, from one of the villages, of the Arab villages, along the Green Line.
Across the Green Line, there are 2 Arab villages that have been hot spots in the uprising. The Israelis sealed them off today and arrested 18 people, but have not charged anyone with the killing so far. The Israelis have vowed to put down the uprising in the occupied territories and lately have been fairly successful at doing so. But the more pressure is applied in the territories, the more the Palestinians seem intent on carrying their battle to Israel itself. The fires of the uprising were blazing on the West Bank today, and people were saying that killings like today's may be a reaction to the frustration many Palestinians in the area are feeling, or perhaps a desire for vengeance.
That village was under siege for more than a month. The crops have been affected. People were killed in that village.
The almost daily killing of Palestinians has become commonplace here. More than 210 have died in the uprising so far, according to United Nations figures. The score may be very uneven, but death is a price being paid by both sides here, by an Israeli widow who's 5 months pregnant and by a fatherless 4-year-old. Whether it's a deliberate Palestinian strategy or not, nothing shocks the Israelis more than the killing of one of their own inside Israel. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Shekef Settlement.
West German officials at the Economic Summit said today that Germany is raising a key central bank interest rate, which means that this country and other world economic powers may feel compelled to do the same. Analysts say that possibility was the main reason for today's stock decline on Wall Street.
The Van Pattens meet one tough customer.
Dick Van Patten, you're saying someone can oil and lube my car better than me?
Yes, it's called Jiffy Lube. In 10 minutes, the J-Team changes the oil with quality Pennzoil.
Here comes the Pennzoil.
Replaces the filter and lubes the chassis. Fills the fluids, 14 services in all.
Okay, but how much?
So
welcome to Jiffy Lube.
We'll take care of you like family.
J-Team, this looks like the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
As soon as you get out there, call Mike Butler at the Century 21 office.
Well, he already called me, Dad.
Check the utility bills.
I will, Dad.
You know the right mortgage.
Isn't this guy Butler a friend of yours?
Yeah, sure.
If he's half the guy you are, I bet I can trust him.
Come with us.
Take care of yourself.
Put your trust in #1.
Write your mother.
Century 21.
Now for indigestion, gas. Introducing new Extra Strength Malox Plus. It neutralizes more than any leading antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as new Extra Strength Malox Plus.
If I don't get a good start in the morning, I might feel peaked. I hate that.
Wheaties, 100% whole wheat, naturally low in sugar. That's champion nutrition.
What the big boys eat.
There was another bombshell today in the celebrated case of Tawana Brawley, the New York State teenager who claims that she was abducted and raped by 6 white men. Richard Schlesinger has the latest.
Since she first made the charge, investigators have found no evidence to back up Brawley's claim, and she has refused to testify before a special grand jury. Attorneys Alton Maddox and C. Vernon Mason and Reverend Al Sharpton have charged this case proves the criminal justice system does not work for blacks. But last week, a close aide to Sharpton said the minister told him privately the charges were false. Today, a man who describes himself as a surveillance expert said he has tapes that prove Brawley's story is a hoax.
Not to be a kidnapping, but actually a 4-day party.
Samuel McLeese told WCBS TV reporters Mike Taibbi and Anna Phillips he was hired by Sharpton to bug Attorney Mason's home and office, along with Sharpton's own house, so Sharpton could protect himself if the case fell apart.
What did you consider to be the most damaging thing that they said?
This is bull, but it's too late. You know, when you hear words like that, then you know that it's all been a game, and the taxpayers that spent all their money for no reason whatsoever.
And everybody spent all their emotions and angst over this.
A political farce, just for personal gain only.
Sharpton and the two lawyers have tried to make the Brawley case into the leading racial issue in New York State.
When Maddox, Mason, and Sharpton insist, as they have hundreds of times publicly, that they fully believe Tawana's story and they have evidence to prove it.
They're lying. It's an outright lie.
Well, Sharpton, Maddox, and Mason were all unavailable for comment on these latest charges. McLeese says he has already taken his information to federal authorities. So little by little, the Tawana Brawley case, which at one time threatened to polarize whites and blacks, is crumbling. Bob?
Thank you, Richard. One final sports note, Curtis Strange won the U.S. Open Golf Championship tonight in Brookline, Massachusetts. Strange beat Britain's Nick Faldo in the 18-hole final by 4 strokes. It was Strange's first major tournament victory. He'll carry home to Virginia $180,000 in first prize money. And that's the news. Bob Schieffer here, sitting in tonight for Dan Rather.
You can see the dream of success in the eyes of people all across America. At Citicorp, we understand the dream. That's why, as Citicorp and Citibank, we've become America's largest financial services organization, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more home mortgages, more student loans, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
I've been writing a lot of stories about aspirin lately, but if you think you've heard all there is about aspirin, think again. Clinical tests on headaches show there's a better aspirin formula. It's Anacin. Listen, the tests show that compared to regular strength aspirin, Anacin provides a more effective level of headache relief. Better relief. The latest good news about aspirin is Anacin.
Anacin, a better aspirin formula.
Raisin Nut Bran tastes better. Tastes better than Kellogg's, better than Post. It's got juicy nut-covered raisins and big, crisp flakes.
People have a better time around Raisin Nut Bran.
The best tasting Raisin Bran.
Into the land of heartburn comes the first liquid antacid without that liquid antacid taste. A really good tasting liquid that puts out heartburn's fire. New Tums Liquid. It works. It really tastes good.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Faith Daniels. Tomorrow, the increase in violence against gays.
And Robert Krulwich serves up couch potatoes on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Coming up on Eyewitness News, millions of dollars in computers sit idle at the Criminal Justice Center. And that once again raises questions about government efficiency.
There's also a question about whether some police officers are cheating on their promotion exams. And there may be disaster relief on the way for Tennessee farmers.
Plus, we'll tell you about a life-saving effort at a Metro swimming pool. Join us for those stories and a lot more right after this.
It's a great time for Opryland because right now McDonald's wants you to enjoy America's music.